Forget the movie. Forget the slow-motion gunfire, the stolen kisses, and the version where two young outlaws drove across America, stealing from the rich and dying together because society could not understand them. That story became one of the most successful myths ever attached to the Wild West era. But almost none of it matches the reality. On the morning Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow died in Louisiana in 1934, they were not glamorous rebels. Bonnie was 23. Clyde was 25. Everything they owned fit inside a dusty Ford V8 parked on a rural road. There was no hidden fortune, no secret destination, and no outlaw empire waiting somewhere ahead. Inside the car were guns, spare clothes, maps, cheap food, and a few $100s in cash. Bonnie had been eating a bologna sandwich. Clyde was barefoot. Seconds later, officers hidden in the brush opened fire and ended one of the most famous crime stories in American history. What survived afterward was not the reality. It was the image. By the early 1930s, America had become the perfect place for a legend like Bonnie and Clyde. The Great Depression had broken routines people once trusted. Farms disappeared under foreclosure. Families packed their belongings into cars and crossed states looking for work. 1 out of every 4 Texans was unemployed. Newspapers were full of failure, debt, and bad news. People wanted stories where somebody escaped. Years later, Bonnie and Clyde would be remembered as symbols of rebellion against that world, but neither of them started that way. They came from ordinary working-class families in West Dallas and spent most of their lives much closer to poverty than freedom. Clyde Barrow had already been drifting into crime before Bonnie ever appeared. As a teenager, he was arrested multiple times for theft and stolen vehicles. Later versions of the story often present him as someone forced into crime by circumstance, but records show somebody who increasingly treated rules as optional. Prison became the turning point. In 1930, Clyde entered Eastham Prison Farm in Texas, one of the harshest prison systems in the country. Former inmates described exhausting labor, violence, and a place where surviving often meant becoming emotionally harder than everyone around you. Clyde later told relatives that prison changed him permanently. When he came out, people noticed something different. He no longer talked about building a future, he talked about never being captured again. That became the center of his life. Bonnie entered that world at exactly the wrong moment. She was 19 when she met Clyde and was already legally married to another man, Roy Thornton, who was serving prison time. She never officially divorced him. When she died years later, police found she was still wearing her wedding ring. Before becoming famous, Bonnie liked writing poetry and had done well in school. Friends remembered someone expressive, funny, and dramatic, but not somebody destined for violence. The popular version of the story treats Bonnie as if she instantly became Clyde's outlaw partner. Reality moved more slowly. She followed him into a life that became harder and harder to leave as the consequences escalated. Then came the photographs that changed everything. In 1933, police raided one of the gang's temporary hideouts in Joplin, Missouri. The group escaped but left behind undeveloped rolls of film. When police processed them, they found images that would define Bonnie and Clyde forever. Bonnie posing with a revolver, Bonnie holding a cigar, Clyde standing nearby smiling. Newspapers published the photos immediately. Americans looked at those pictures and saw danger, confidence, and rebellion. Almost overnight, the public image became more powerful than the reality behind it. According to people close to Bonnie, the cigar was part of a joke and she did not even smoke them. It did not matter. The public had found its outlaw couple. Depression-era America was exhausted and newspapers understood that stories about young rebels sold better than stories about foreclosure and unemployment. The strange thing is that their actual crimes rarely matched their reputation. Hollywood trained generations to imagine dramatic bank robberies and attacks against wealthy institutions. Most of the time, Bonnie and Clyde robbed places that already had almost nothing. gas stations, small grocery stores, tiny local banks, family businesses. There is no evidence they ever gave money to struggling families or shared stolen cash with anyone. Often the money disappeared immediately into fuel, food, ammunition, and staying mobile. Their life became repetitive, driving, hiding, eating quickly, and constantly moving before somebody recognized them. The poorer they became, the more famous they became. Their reputation grew faster than their bank account. Life on the run looked miserable. The Ford V8 became almost everything at once: transportation, shelter, storage, and escape plan. Clothes stayed piled together. Meals happened parked beside roads. Sleep became shallow because staying in one place felt dangerous. Every unfamiliar face mattered. Every parked car mattered. Then things became worse. In 1933, Bonnie suffered severe burns during a car accident and never fully recovered. Witnesses later described her struggling to walk and sometimes needing help moving. Clyde carried injuries and exhaustion of his own. Their famous outlaw years looked less like adventure and more like two injured people refusing to stop because stopping felt even more dangerous. The violence is where the myth starts falling apart. By the end of their run, 13 people were dead. Several were local officers earning modest salaries during the worst economic crisis in generations. These were not wealthy federal agents or powerful politicians. They were county officers and patrolmen with families. Officer Malcolm Davis left behind a pregnant wife. Officer H.D. Murphy had been married only months. Others left families trying to survive with almost no support. Outlaw stories work best when rebels fight powerful systems. Bonnie and Clyde rarely lived inside that version of events. In many cases, poor and working-class people ended up harming one another while nobody involved actually escaped poverty. Even their relationship looked different up close. Movies usually present them as inseparable lovers against the world. Their actual time together outside prison was shorter than most people imagine. Clyde spent long periods incarcerated. Family accounts describe arguments, breakups, plans to leave, and plans abandoned. Bonnie's mother later rejected the romantic version completely and described watching her daughter disappear into somebody else's life. Whatever held Bonnie and Clyde together looked less like a perfect romance and more like two people trapped inside consequences they no longer knew how to escape. By 1934, their world had become smaller. The gang itself had never been just Bonnie and Clyde. Family members, recruits, and temporary partners moved in and out over time. One of them eventually decided survival mattered more than loyalty. Henry Methvin's father, Ivy Methvin, gave information to authorities in exchange for protection for his family. Former Texas Ranger Frank Hamer used that information carefully. He studied habits, routes, and patterns until everything narrowed to one road in Louisiana. On the morning of May 23rd, the setup looked ordinary. Trees, dust, a truck parked by the roadside. Nothing unusual enough to trigger alarm. Bonnie and Clyde slowed. Officers hidden nearby opened fire almost immediately. Reports disagree on exact numbers, but nobody disputes what happened. The shooting ended in seconds. When people reached the car afterward, they did not find glamorous outlaws. They found clothes, weapons, cheap food, and two young people who had spent years running without ever finding anywhere to arrive. In theory, that should have ended the story. Instead, it helped create the version of Bonnie and Clyde that later generations would remember. Crowds gathered around the car. Photographs spread. Souvenir hunters cut pieces from the vehicle. Decades later, Hollywood finished the transformation. In 1967, America wanted anti-heroes, and the movie gave them exactly that. Historical truth became less important than emotional truth. That is why most people still remember the cigar, the photographs, and the romance. Not the burns, not the hunger, not the officers buried quietly afterward. Bonnie and Clyde did not become legends because they beat the system. They became legends because America kept rewriting what it needed them to mean.